Good morning and excuse me, welcome to the meeting of the Police Services Board for the month of February. Just some information before we launch into the official meeting. Excuse me, I'll be leaving at about 10 o'clock for another engagement. And depending on where we are in the agenda, the Vice Chair will take over. Unfortunately, the Mayor sends her regrets. The province hasn't appointed another member yet, so when I depart, we will lose quorum. That doesn't mean the meeting has to end. It just means that no decisions can be taken. We can deal with all the information pieces, the reports from our police service and other things that are on the agenda. What I would like to propose to the board members is that we make some minor adjustments to the agenda. We'll continue on with the ceremonial activity, and we have Jessica Stephan here, who is here and will receive a certificate of thanks for all of her work, and we have others that will be mailed out for the community policing committees that were in place. And then we will have a deputation from Constable Ed Sanchuk, and he will be making a request to the board, so we will need a motion, and if we agree with it, we'll need a motion to that effect. I also added to the agenda, with your approval, an email that came in from the Ontario Association of Police Services Boards, and they're looking for sponsorship for their conference, their annual conference, which will happen in May. I believe in years past we have offered sponsorship up to $1,000. It may have been more, I don't recall. Mike, do you have a memory of $1,000? Yeah, so we'll deal with that as a financial issue, as long as we have a quorum, if you don't mind, board members. Also, we will need a decision on an email, a letter that we got from Project Lifesaver, and they're seeking a letter of support to be forwarded. And again, if the board agrees, we will have a motion and approve that to go forward. So those things will move up front to the agenda if there's no objection to that. And then we'll carry on with the information pieces that are on the agenda, such as the strategic plan draft, and I emphasize the word draft, the follow-up from the Zone 4 meeting, the follow-up from the session on the 19th, George, and the OPP monthly statistical report, and the staff memo from Owen on the proceeds from crime account, which really is a Police Services Board auction account, basically. We don't have proceeds of crime. And then any other business and question period, as long as the media are still here. So any objections to moving the agenda around in that fashion? No? Thank you very much. So the first item of business is a very important item of business, and that is to sincerely thank the members of the community policing committees that were in effect for quite a long time. Certainly my memory goes back when we had 11 of them, and most recently that was dwindled to 5. And because of the lack of volunteers, and I guess there are other things that intervene, but certainly the lack of volunteers, those 5 committees have collapsed as well. And the approach that has been taken and approved by council is to advertise for applicants to a new Norfolk-wide committee, policing committee in the community. There are 12 vacancies that need to be filled. I sincerely hope that we get representation from across Norfolk, and I sincerely hope also that we get a number of youthful folks that will apply and bring forward the concerns and thoughts that are within their communities. Certainly this morning we're going to recognize the contribution of those members that were with us before. I'll list them. Excuse me. And we have Jessica Stephan, who is here this morning, Michelle Huff, who is not with us today, Brenda Paraki, who is also not here today, Briquette, no, Rick Taylor, and Neil O'Connell. And in order, those are from Delhi, Cortland, Waterford, Simcoe, Port Dover, and Neil O'Connor was the Community Policing Chairs Committee Treasurer as well. To the chairs with us today and the many volunteers who have been with us over the years, we extend our sincere thanks. It's important for the PSB to hear the concerns of the community, not only directly to our police service, the OPP, but through the committee as well, so we can plan our strategic approaches to policing in Norfolk County. And you know that we are moving some things around. We have some objectives that we want to achieve within the next short period of time, not the least being March 1st, the false alarm bylaw coming into play. Hot on the heels as the applications that I've mentioned are out there for the new committee. And we have a draft strategic plan. So of the 4 things that I have worked with the board on, 3 of them are in action right now. Certainly without the community members and their support, we would not be able to do our jobs efficiently or effectively. We appreciate volunteers. We have throughout the existence of Norfolk. It's what drives Norfolk. And the spirit and the commitment from those folks make Norfolk a better place to live. And you are recognized and you are applauded. Today we present certificates for those who are present, as I said, and those who are not here today, could not be here today. We will make sure that the certificate is mailed to them with a respective covering letter. In addition, we specifically thank the chairs for their collaboration and input to the community policing structure. Excuse me, we do have a number of subcommittees that do operate as well with those committees, not the least being Project Lifesaver. And I spoke with Michelle Huff, and we were to meet. Excuse me, we were to meet. However, we've decided to hold off that meeting until the new committee's in place, and to give them some awareness as to what Project Lifesaver is and can be. Also, I had a short meeting with the Haldeman Norfolk Health and Social Services, just to get a feel for their position on providing some sort of sustainable support to Project Lifesaver and the community that they serve. It seems that Health and Social Services might be a good partner in there, and there might be the opportunity to extend that service and that project into Haldeman as well through the Health and Social Services, which service both communities. So that's underway. That we can put that to the list as number 5 and hopefully achieve some good outcomes there. The new committee, when it's put in place, and there are 12 prospective members, as I've mentioned, there are 12 vacancies. Excuse me. They will continue to analyze the local policing needs and issues and provide advice to the Police Services Board. The new approach means that the residents and organizations in Norfolk can speak with one voice. I apologize. On policing issues, and no longer having a silos approach to things. Now we're more lateral and more cohesive going forward. So I do ask the media, and I do ask everyone that's here today and everyone who might watch this video to put the word out. Go to the Norfolk County site, look at the applications, and step up, please, and help your community on policing issues. So having said all of that, Michelle, would you like to step up here? Or sorry, Jessica, would you like to step up here? I'm going to ask board member George Santos to do this presentation, only because he's dressed appropriately for any photos. I do have to rush off, as I say, at 10 to something else, which is much more informal. So, there you go. I'll let you folks
you very much for your service. Okay.
Chief of Police.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. On behalf of the Norfolk Public Service, or the Norfolk Police Services Board, I want to thank you for your hard work and your determination. And on behalf of Council and the Corporation of Norfolk County and the residents, I wish to extend our grateful recognition. I don't have my reading glasses on here. I apologize for being a supportive, community-minded citizen. Your time on the Norfolk County Community Policing Committee is appreciated and respected. Thank you very much. Thanks, Monty.
So as I mentioned, we do have certificates for Michelle, Brenda Baraki, Rika from Central, Jill O'Donnell, and Rick. So those will all be going out in the mail to those folks with a covering letter of appreciation. And the certificate is signed by the mayor of Norfolk County and the clerk. Then that takes us to, any declaration of pecuniary interest from the board members this morning? Anything on the agenda? Seeing none, thank you very much. Moves us then from ceremonial activities into presentations and deputations. And we have Constable Ed Sanchuk here this morning. Sir, you've been here before, so you know how to push that big gray button. And thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. Chair Tavalli, members of the Police Services Board, Inspector Varga, Staff Sergeant Klingbeil, and Fashing. I'm here today asking for the Norfolk County Police Services Board support in purchasing an OPP tent and tablecloth that can be used at various community events held throughout Norfolk County. I'm asking for the board to purchase these items to the Proceeds of Crime Fund, where various items were auctioned off. In the folder before you, you're going to find 2 quotes. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to discuss that with you. But there's also loose documents in the middle of the folder that consist of the events that are attended in Norfolk County, along with the pictures of the tent and tablecloth that were used at the Norfolk County Fair last year. Over the years, while I've been the Media Relations Community Safety Officer, I've been able to build several relationships in the community, and I'm always fostering new ones. I've been invited to several events that allow me to focus on crime prevention, amongst other programs that deal with young children right up to our seniors, which affects basically everyone in our community. I believe that this is an integral part of community policing and crime prevention, which continues to allow me to build strong relationships with everyone in our community and continue to share information. I can tell you without a doubt that Norfolk County are leaders across the province, not only in the media, but community events that attract national attention. I understand that the Police Services Board has a strategic plan, and one of the core functions is crime prevention. I feel that this purchase will assist me with this particular core function, help delivering the message that will, while keeping the community informed of policing issues and concerns, while allowing our OPP officers to share information and answer any questions from the public. As several events are quickly approaching, one that I can speak to is the Mental Health and Awareness Fair happening this Saturday. I'll be traveling to Aurelia tomorrow morning in order to secure a tent and tablecloth that you have in your package. I will then return those items the following week, and on average it takes 3 hours one way to pick those items up, 3 hours back, and with a tank of gas. The tent that will be ordered, if approved, will only be used for Norfolk County events and will specify Norfolk County in the graphics. I just wanted to thank you for your time and consideration and look forward to hearing from you. And if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ed. Questions from the board? Councillor Columbus.
Thank you, Ed. Did you say there was two quotes?
Yes, sir. There's 2 quotes. One's on the left-hand side and one is on the right-hand side when you open the folder. That one on the left-hand side will be that one there from,
Okay,
yes,
sorry.
sir. No worries.
And which one are you recommending, actually?
For being fiscally responsible, I looked at the quotes and I noticed that I tried to stay local. However, when you start looking into the background of the tent and to the graphics that go onto the tent, there's actually a $75 an hour charge to actually put those graphics on. So the quote that I'm aiming towards is the quote on the right-hand side, which includes the tablecloth for exactly what we're probably going to pay for the quote on the left with taxes and shipping.
And how many times a year do you expect to utilize this?
You know, that's a great question. I attend so many events that I could have used this equipment. I've lost count, but I have given you a list of events in the package, but we've attended on a regular basis.
Okay, good.
Further from the board? Mr. Santos? You don't need to stand up, George.
I'm looking at this. Thank you, Owen. Morning, Constable Sanchuk. I think this is a no-brainer. You're very well respected in our community. You've shown through the last several years, not only with the Norfolk County Fair, but I mean in the community in general. To me, I can say it's a no-brainer. I know there's funds in the account. It might seem like a high number, but I mean ultimately we haven't really spent much in the last 2 years. So I can tell you, you have my support, and I do believe that you'll have the Police Services Board's support for this. So thank you very much, Constable.
Thank you, Mr. Santos. And just on that note, too, for the new community policing group that you are putting together, this may be a potential opportunity to utilize that in any events that they may hold. And I know working with the various community policing groups that were before us, we attended several events throughout Norfolk County where we could have used this equipment.
Councillor Columbus.
Mr. Chair, to keep things moving along, I will make the motion that we expend, what is it?
Oh, can you hold off a minute?
Sure.
I do have a question.
Okay.
Thank you. So we have two quotes in front of us. Is that, am I
That's
holding
correct,
up
Chair.
the proper pieces of paper here?
That's what I was provided, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. And when I look at the net pricing, $2,400 on the one because of the GST rebate or reduction, and the other $2,422 plus HST, so that does not include the HST.
That does not include HST or
Or
shipping, Chair.
shipping. Okay, so just as long as we have the numbers correct in our head here. One is local?
One is local, and the other one we've dealt with in the past where they've actually utilized our OPP graphics. So we will actually have a savings with that company due to the, I was trying to really stay local. However, the price will exceed what that quote is right there in front of you.
Good, thank you very much for that. I'll go back now to Councillor Columbus.
So with that, Mr. Chair, I will move that we expend $2,712 towards this tent and signage, I guess it is?
Yes, sir. It would be the tent along with actually the backdrops, the two sides, and an OPP tablecloth.
With funding to come from, what is the committee? Okay, good.
PSB.
So I do believe this will put the dollars to good use in the community of Norfolk.
Okay, so just for clarification,
Yes, Chair.
Constable, you need the 2712 or something less than that?
That would be correct. What they've quoted me out with that one, yes, sir.
Okay, just so we know what 27, for the record, it's 27.
For the record, yes, sir.
2712 for the motion. Second motion.
It's for over 8 years, so, and it's still counting. So that's the good news, and you won't be disappointed with this. It'll be a great pleasure to have that out in our community at various events.
Thank you very much. You can call the vote on the matter. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members of the board. Have a great day, folks.
Then that takes us to the revised agenda. A request from the Ontario Association of Police Services Boards, and you should have that on your table. It's a single-page letter or email. In previous years, we have supported the annual conference in a fund model. of $1,000, if memory serves me correctly. So I'll entertain anything from the board at this point. George, Mike? You put your mic on, please.
Mr. Chair, if I may, just looking at this form, I'm looking at bronze. If we can keep it under the $9.99, my calculations so far would leave us in our account $5,700. So I'm thinking that if we can keep it under the 900 range, so I'm more than willing to save $500, if that's okay. So that's half of what we did last year in 2019.
Suggestion is for $500. Councillor Columbus, any comment?
Well, I was suggesting that we just keep it where it was, but I don't know the rationale for Mr. Santos.
Yeah, I've attended the annual conference in the past, and I can assure you that the money is well spent. They don't have a large trade show at all, not a big sponsor base there. So they do rely on the members for putting the conference on, the speakers travel, accommodation, the meals that are offered up are covered off by the registration fee, so it doesn't go to that side of it at all. It's mostly on the administrative side for speakers and speakers' accommodation and travel. So, do you want to make that a motion, or do you want to listen to Councillor Columbus?
If I may, Mr. Chair, so to Councillor Columbus, so you believe that we should be up in the $1,000 mark?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So, Mr. Chair, I'll put forth a motion.
Yep.
That the Norfolk Police Services Board set aside $1,000 for the OA PSB for 2020.
Thank you.
Second that.
Seconded by Councillor Columbus. Any other discussion? All in favor? Unanimous again. Thank you very much. You'll let Fred know of that outcome. One more financial piece that we want to deal with this morning, and that is a check that we have received for the December online auction in the amount of $70.15, 70.15. So again, just to remind everyone who isn't aware, or just to refresh our memory, that fundamentally these come from the sale of bicycles and a few other things picked up, but mostly bicycles during that. Councillor Columbus.
Mr. Chairman, you said $17.15.
70.
70.
Yep.
Okay. Why are we not getting very many bids? Why are we not, one bicycle should be worth that. How come bicycles are selling like for $8 and $15? Is that not being marketed as effectively as it should, or?
I'll let the Chief of Police answer that, but he, in the past, has indicated that they're not all in the best of shape.
And that is correct, Mr. Chair. Most of the bicycles that are recovered need a lot of work, and they're not worth a lot of money at auction even.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And there are other items besides bicycles too.
Yeah, there's other recovered property that's not claimed, small power tools, hammers, odds and sods of things. Again, value-wise, they're not much.
Okay. Yep, thanks. I'll move that we make that payment. The $70?
It's a check to us to go
Check
into
to
our
us,
account.
okay.
So it's an information piece more than anything else. But because it deals with finances, I wanted to bring it up further in the agenda. Okay. While we still have the quorum, two other items before we carry on to information pieces. And the next piece will be a motion that should be on your table, or just on my table? Just on my table. So it deals with the report from Owen, and I'll read it to you, that the staff memo regarding PSB budget information and PSB proceeds from crime account be received as information. That the Norfolk County Police Services Board proceeds from crime account be referred to henceforth as Norfolk County Police Services Board auction funds account, so that we don't get proceeds of crime. That the attached policy PSB 2020-02 regarding Norfolk County Police Services Board auction funds account be adopted. Any comment on that? I need a motion from the board members. Councillor Santos? Or sorry, Mr. Santos. Councillor Columbus. Any discussion? It's just really a name change. All in favor? Unanimous again. There you are, Owen. Thank you. And one final piece of information that we need a decision of the board, and that is a letter of support to the Project Lifesaver, a request that came in from Michelle Huff. She's looking for those letters to be forwarded to their, I'll call it their headquarters or their main body. They're looking at ways on how to get the program into a more sustainable position going forward. Right now it depends a lot on volunteers to go out and change the batteries and deal with some of the clients. The head office of Project Lifesaver will be lobbying going forward to senior levels of government for such institutionalization of the project. But at this case, at this point, they're simply asking us to provide a letter of support to them. So, over to the board. Your feelings on this matter?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have a problem with this. It's just a letter at this time. I see she wants an answer by February 29th.
Yeah, that's 3 days from now.
Right.
Yep.
So
We'll have that drafted very quickly and emailed to her if the board
very
approves.
worthwhile project under her leadership. Thanks.
Yeah. Seconded by Mr. Santos.
I agree with that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. All in favor? Great. So those are the business items fundamentally that required board motion and board direction. And then that takes us at 9:30 to the informational pieces that are before us. And the first one will be the acceptance of the minutes from the last meeting. If there are no errors, corrections, or objections, Councillor Columbus.
I just had a question. Has there been any update on the towing? It's mentioned in the minutes. Has there been any movement on that?
There is a meeting coming up very shortly.
Yes, Mr. Chair. There's a meeting today at 2 o'clock that's being held here next door with the tow companies, the county, and Staff Sergeant Fashing and Sergeant Fox will be in attendance at that.
This is being driven by the clerk's office because it deals with their licensing bylaw and things related to that. So our role fundamentally at the beginning was to bring all the parties together and agitate a bit to make it happen. And so that, as the chief has indicated, it will happen today. This will be, what, the third meeting?
This will be the second meeting
meeting?
of all the involved parties.
Yeah, thank you. So any other items related to the minutes from the last meeting? If not, we'll accept them as adopted. So done. Thank you very much. Item number 8, reports, discussion, items, and action items. Certainly, over the last week, Owen and I have been busy putting together through a toing and froing by email and a cut and a paste and things like that, doing some research on other police services boards, a draft, and I emphasize the word draft, strategic plan or business plan going forward through to the end of the term of this police services board. It'll be reviewed annually. However, it would be up to the next board if they want to change it or go in a different direction. It is attached to the minutes, to the agenda of this meeting, so I would hope the media has a copy of it. It's not a secret document in any way, shape, or form. The process going forward will be to take the draft and then we'll convene with our police service, find out what their corporate headquarters is saying to them in terms of a strategic plan. We'll find out what they want to superimpose on that draft that we have and what they're hearing from their corporate headquarters, and they're hearing from the local folks what's happening. If we have the committee, the Community Policing Committee in place by the end of March, we'll also bring them into the fold for their discussion. So we're not going to rush this process, but I wanted to get that draft out there so people can kick it around. We want as much as possible to stay true to the priorities that are in the Police Services Act and pending legislation as well. So we did canvass council on their priorities. All 9 members of council did respond, and that was fed into this draft as well. So as we go forward, there's going to be a lot of players, a number of players that will be involved in the fulmination of this document. Certainly is my ambition, and in my discussions with board members, the ambition is to, as much as possible, have the most effective and efficient policing at the front end, which is why we're getting out of the faults of our business as much as possible, why we're getting out of the bylaws issue as much as possible, and that's another thing that'll be coming forward in the ensuing months, and moving those resources to effective policing at the front end. So I'm not asking for any comments this morning on the draft plan. You have it attached to the agenda. If you have comments, please feed them in through Owen, realizing that this is not the final document, and any comments you do send in will not be your final comments, because there's going to be a lot of discussion that will take place as we go forward. Anything from the board members at this point? George?
Mr. Chair, if I may, if the date could be 2023, and the only reason being is, I mean, if there is an election, you always want a year after the fact to at least have a board.
Well, the board exists in terms of council. My appointment is in terms of council. Your appointment is from the province, which is a little bit longer. Mike's is in terms of council, because he's on council. The mayor, so that's the date we chose, 2022.
So if I can add to that, Mr. Chair, the reason being is, if a new council comes in, at least there's a plan in place for at least another year.
It won't die.
Okay.
It'll be in place.
I think it's imperative because, I mean, anything can change. It's politics. But if we have a plan and the plan is in place, it's important. And one thing I would just want to also make note on this, with the business plan itself, Section 10, we're ruled under Section 10. So there are limits in what we can and cannot do. So I just want to make that clear. Mm-hmm. And if that could be added, but I'll make note of that.
Yep.
Thank you,
Please
Mr. Chair.
send in all your comments, everyone. Just a minute, Joe.
Chair, I think, I take it that the new policing committee will have input into this as well, or
Yep.
do you want it finalized before that?
No, there's no rush on this, Mike. I've said
Okay.
that, and the new community policing, when they're in place, the committee will undertake to review this as well. I mean, it is a draft, you know, and even my quick reading of it after the fact, you know, there are things like active vehicular and foot patrols, and, you know, when we get down to the granular level of how this will translate into a tactical plan or an operational plan, that will be up to the policing service to provide to us. The board will stay strategic. The policing service, the OPP, will then provide us with how they will implement this at an operational level. And then through the monthly statistics that we get and any other reports, things that we want to monitor, and I've listed a few of them at the bottom there, then we will be able then to evaluate the success of the plan and of the strategic plan and the operational plan, and sit down with our policing service and make any adjustments necessary as we go forward. Okay. Sorry, Joe.
That's fine, Mr. Chair. I was just going to advise that corporately our business plan is a 3-year plan. Mm-hmm. So our next one coming out would be 2020 to 2023. If that.
Yep. And please believe me, I'm not putting this in stone. It's just, it's terms of council, and 3 of the members are from council, or council appointed, as the case may be. So that's for information for everyone. Zone 4 meeting. Councillor Columbus, you attended that, did you?
Unfortunately, I was under the weather that
No.
day, and I did not make it. And I understand, too, that there was a bottleneck of traffic, and some of the other members from other police boards were trying to make it, and they had to turn back because the meeting was half over by the time they get there.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of having meetings in Toronto at the best of times. So we'll wait for the minutes to come out from that meeting. Did you attend at all, Joe, or your folks?
I had planned on attending, however, I got tied up with a critical
Yeah.
incident, so I was unable.
Life takes over, right? So we'll wait for the minutes to come out of that. I wonder, have we received them already? And you sent them out yet? Oh, okay, great, thanks. So we'll look at those, and I'll ask if there are any comments on the minutes from that meeting, the Zone 4 meeting. Please send them forward to Owen, and we'll pick it up through that process. Yeah, well, this was a big issue that, and I'm sure George will mention it at the February 19th meeting, which is similar to the one I attended in Toronto a few weeks earlier. And the Solicitor General's office is, in their presentation, putting a heavy focus on training. The Ontario's, and I'm just going to mix things here for a second, the Ontario Association of Police Services Board also sent out a draft of their vision, mission statement, and business plan going forward. And of the priorities they list, they start off with diversity, inclusiveness, and those soft things, which absolutely do apply to policing, but there was nothing up front about crime prevention, law enforcement that are in the Police Services Act. And that was my comment back to them. I said, you know, wait a minute. We're called the Police Services Board Association for a reason, you know. And as a board that has the Ontario Provincial Police as their policing service, I can't go to them and say, oh, no, you got to improve your diversity. You have to improve your inclusion. That comes from your corporate headquarters. And so, again, I reflected back to Mr. Ken Gansel. I said, you know, you got to take into consideration there are 140 approximate boards that are governed by, are served by the Ontario Provincial Police, not just looking at Toronto, Hamilton, and those places. So that's another thing that's unfolding. We'll see where it goes. I hope that my response had some take up. Not that I'm against diversity or inclusiveness and those soft issues, but again, I want to say that the corporate headquarters of the Ontario Provincial Police will send down their dictum as to how that takes place and how they recruit and how they train and everything else. On the issue of training, yes, it was a prime focus at the meeting that I went to a few weeks previous, and I'm sure the note that you sent to me, George, it was again a high note, a highlight of the presentation from the Solicitor General's Department. I have been in touch with a professor at Laurier who was under contract to produce a number of studies, and there's going to be a large report coming forward that we won't have access to until it's made public, but it focuses on the interaction between police and those who are within the mental health community, and how to de-escalate and do those kinds of things. And what I am being told is that the Ontario Provincial Police will be a training bed for that program. But it's interesting, again, to notice that training is taking a number at the top of the queue for a lot of things. So we'll wait for the minutes from the 4th, or we have the minutes from the 4th, so any comments, please feed them back. And George, you wanted to comment on the meeting of the 19th in London?
Sure, if I may, Mr. Chair. I did send minutes out to the board members,
Yep.
But I'll sum it up quickly. I mean, it's fairly clear that the OPP are the second largest police force in Canada. My understanding is that the OPP has 63 detachments, and there's 326 municipalities that are being supported by the OPP, plus 45 First Nation communities that are being watched over by the OPP. For us, it comes down to the major resources. The OPP have all these resources, but from what I understand from our cousins next door to the east in Haldeman County, they have the same issues that we have with regards to the 911 false alarms, issues with regards to a number of other models. But I think at the end of the day, the whole province is in the same, on the same page, let's put it that way. But we always have to remember that we're under this section, and so our hands are tied, but we are limited. So ultimately, it's the commissioner of the OPP out of Aurelia that has the say. So that's pretty well what I understood and I brought out of this meeting, plus the fact that I made some notes for the members. And if you have any questions, Mr. Chair, or Councillor Columbus, I'm here to answer them. Thank you.
Yeah, and I looked at the notes, and I looked at the deck, too, that was presented from the Solicitor General's Department. Some minor changes were made coming out of the meeting that we had in Toronto, out at the airport, but nothing dramatic. And I got the sense, and I'm not sure whether you did or not, George, it was the Section 10 folks, particularly under the contract basis of using the OPP, were the little brothers, to put it in that terminology, rather than all the major communities, the municipalities, Hamilton, Toronto, London, with their own police forces, and some of the small ones with their own police forces, Elmer, St. Thomas, carried more weight. And it's going to be up to us to sort of push back on that and make sure that as we move into the new legislation that does broaden the scope a little bit, we take to heart what was said at that podium by municipal policing. You know, the folks are under our contract to provide us with service in the first instance. Yes, we appreciate the corporate realm and the envelope or blanket that they bring down in terms of how these folks can operate, but at the same time, they're here to serve us. So that's got to send that message back as clearly as we can. The good news coming out of the one in Toronto and subsequent, the take-up from the communities that have the OPP under contract that want to have copies of our false alarm bylaw and policy that goes with it. Very, very interesting. Most recent one was even from North Bay that have their own police force. They want to move in that direction. So it's spreading across Ontario. Go ahead, sir.
And just to add to that, Mr. Chair, and it was reiterated that our inspector of police is our chief of police.
Chief of police, yeah.
So once again, I mean, in Norfolk County, we have the tendency to refer to Inspector Varga, but it's my understanding that we should be referring to him as Chief of Police Varga. Yep. That's my understanding. That's what came out of this round table meeting in London.
Yep. And that was spoken very clearly at the podium here by Municipal Policing Bureau. He is our chief of police. Now, I know he has a schizophrenic view here in terms of being with the OPP and that whole corporate thing, but we'll work our way through it.
My chief superintendent may view that differently.
Yeah, well, we'll talk to him. So, those two items were covered off. And I thank you very much for attending that meeting in London. George. Takes us to the monthly report by the OPP.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The monthly report for January 2020, page 12, the 2020 overtime allotment per the contract is $423,114. Dollars spent to date, an estimate $14,506.84, which represents 3.43% of our overtime allotment. Auxiliary policing hours for the month of January, 273 and a half. Crime Stoppers report, page 14. January, there was 47 anonymous tips received. Crime Stoppers bursary applications have been handed out in Haldeman and Norfolk. Submissions are due back this Saturday, March 1st. Promotions, presentations, meetings. Crime Stoppers presented to the Norfolk Chamber of Commerce and the Norfolk Police Service Board. Media relations, they continue doing their normal media relations throughout the month of January. Fundraising, January 15th, they had a fundraiser dinner at the Boston Pizza in Simcoe. It was well attended and was a very good success. They are still selling raffle tickets for the Big Green Egg Barbecue Smoker. $5 each, 3 for $10. It's a $3,000 barbecue, so it's a really good deal. And tickets can be had from any Crime Stoppers board member or just stop in our office on the highway. The Crime Stoppers Spring Fundraiser, they're organizing that, and Port Dover illusionist Lucas Wilson has been booked for entertainment, so that should be a very good fundraiser. And nationally, internationally, nothing's really changed. They're still focusing on human trafficking, counterfeit goods, and contraband tobacco and organized crime.
On Crime Stoppers, and I've sent you an email, and you responded,
Yes.
and I thank you very much. For the board's information, my question was about Amy and what her status was. And it was unclear to me whether she was an OPP constable, whether she was auxiliary, or whether she was civilian. And she provides the coordination support to Crime Stoppers. And the response was she is a civilian in the first instance, but also a sergeant auxiliary, correct?
Correct. She's a civilian employee of the Ontario Provincial Police, but she also holds the rank of sergeant within our auxiliary unit at Norfolk County.
And is she under our contract or under the provincial aspects of the contract?
She's a provincial full-time employee.
So she's not paid by Norfolk County?
She's not an enhancement.
Okay, thank you very much. Some questions come up about that, and I want to make sure that we're clear about the fact that who she was, what rank she had, and who was paying. So thank you very much for that clarification.
Page 15, locally dedicated hours of overtime for the month of January. There was 424.86 municipal hours and 219.5 provincial hours of overtime. Page 16, 17 through to 20 are the monthly statistics. I can answer questions at the end, should you wish.
Okay, Councillor Columbus? Put your mic on, please.
17, Chief Varga, the 400% increase in possession, why would that have jumped that much from one year to the next?
It's because our street crime unit is very active and they executed more warrants in the month of January, and I'll detail that further in my report.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and this is, again, one of the reasons I don't particularly like statistics that much in terms of percentages. It can go from 1 to 2 and you got a 100% increase. So I look at the numbers, and so it is from 1 to 5, a dramatic shift, and good news, if there is such thing as good news about possession of drugs. But the 400%, I'm not a percentage guy.
Just a couple other notable things that I want to mention, because I know alarms are on top of the list. So in the month of January, based on a 5-year trend analysis, we could expect 61 false alarm calls. During the month of January 2020, we had 44. So that's good news there. On the the illicit drug side, during the month of January, we investigated 7 drug events, and during the month of January, the Community Street Crimes Unit seized $1,900 in drugs, $4,500 in property, $847 in currency, and they were involved in some way, shape, or form in 121 investigations, which included 5 warrants, resulting in 10 Controlled Drug Substances Act charges and 12 criminal code charges. Under mental health, we had 48 mental health calls during the month of January. 45 mental health calls in the month of January, and officers dedicated 401.5 hours to their investigations. And year-to-date, mental health call takes about 7 1/4 hours from start to finish. Impaired driving, based on a 5-year trend, it was expected that we could see 6 events for impaired driving in January. During the actual month, we investigated 7 impaired driving investigations. Focus patrols for the month of January, we continue with our Cottage Watch seasonal focus patrol. We had a focus patrol for an address on Kent Street in regards to drugs, trespass, and mischief. That is still ongoing.
Yeah, I saw that activity.
At this time.
Yeah.
Under traffic focus patrols, we conducted one St. John's Road for speeding, and 20 hours were dedicated to that focus patrol, and 22 charges were laid, one of which was a stunt driving and impaired charge. We also had a focus patrol for speeding on McDowell Road, and 23 hours were dedicated to it, and 8 charges were laid. One speed watch, so our speed spy study was conducted in January. That was for Sparrow Way in Port Dover at the request of Mayor, and no problem was observed on there. And I just want to mention 911 hang-ups. As you know, the OPP implemented a new policy in our response to 911 calls that they're vetted at the comm center. And in January, we had 43 actual calls, and based on a 5-year trend, normally we would see between 93 and 151. So that new policy has reduced responses to those calls as well. And I have one more tab here, and I'm not sure why I tabbed it. Oh, that's alarms. And that's the report, and I'll entertain questions if there is any.
Thank you. And would you just clarify for the board and anyone else, including the media, the term proceeds of crime, the assets and dollars that are seized, where does that all go?
Well, if once the case goes through court and it's finished, and if the judge doesn't return the money and seizes it, goes into proceeds of crime, or if we make application to seize property that's associated to crime, it goes into one provincial fund, which is administered by the province, and the money's dealt out to the different committees, police forces who apply under various grants.
So if we had something in Norfolk County that I thought was going to produce better policing or reinforce the policing, we could make application to that fund?
Correct. There's parameters each year. They set out different guidelines for the grants. The one last year focused on human trafficking, and I don't think the new grant applications come out to the end of 2020.
Okay,
They've gone to a 2-year cycle now.
thank you. Any questions to our Chief of Police? Yes, Mr. Santos.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I spoke to the chief earlier. There was an article on February 4th in the Simcoe Reformer where it referred to a Norfolk OPP officer's quick thinking saves a man from a drug overdose. I read the article and I didn't see the name of the officer, which is fairly clear, but I think it would be nice if we could, Mr. Chair, to the Chief of Police here in Norfolk, if we could find out who the officer is and have him attend and thank him on behalf of the Police Services Board. And I know in the past this has been referred to in the paper as an officer or he or she saved a life. I'd like to know who they are and congratulate them because they saved a life. And I think it's paramount that we make note of that, Mr. Chair, here at the Norfolk Police Services Board.
Comment?
I have no problem providing the names of the board. However, we don't provide it to the media for obvious reasons. I would be happy to provide it to the board in camera, and how you wish to present that award is up to the board, but yeah, I'd rather not make that officer known public.
That was sort of where I was going on it as well.
That's fine, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. But do pass along the board's appreciation and thanks. Speed Watch, you mentioned Speed Watch. Has that committee met, accident reduction or whatever, it's collision reduction? Sorry, there's no such thing as an accident.
I believe they renamed the committee to more appropriate, the Norfolk County Road Safety Committee, if Staff Sergeant Fashion. And they did have a meeting last week or the week before.
On February the 5th.
I'll let Staff Fashion, he attended the meeting. So.
Mr. Chair, yeah, we did have a meeting on February the 5th, and we have renamed it to the Norfolk County Road Safety Committee. And there was some discussion regarding the signs. My understanding is they were still being put together by the county, literally physically being put together, and then provisions were being made to have the mounting posts deployed.
They were putting them on outside Port Dover last week.
So sites have been selected?
Yes. We discussed that prior to.
Certainly it was our request to have that list, have a look at it at least before the decisions were.
That was brought up at one of the meetings.
Here? Okay.
Yep. And it was the 3 hotspots that we had presentations from.
I am failing in my memory. Yeah, thank you. I stand corrected. And then this year we're supposed to get 6 more, Mike?
I'm not 100% sure on that. I know we've got, the ones that we've ordered came in and they're busy putting posts in the ground. That's been the holdup.
All right.
Is the posts, because they cannot be mounted on utility poles or other trees or anything like that. They have to be on their own posts.
Okay. Anything further, John?
Yeah, and just in continuation, we do have the mobile sign as well, but at this point, it's difficult due to inclement weather. Snow plows on the road, we have to be careful with that. As soon as we have a stretch where we can deploy it, we'll get it out.
Okay. And I do believe there was, capital budget had 6 more and that was approved. So we'll see where they are. Okay, thank you. Anything further? No? Go ahead. Yep.
Mr. Chair, just one quick question to the Chief of Police. On page 20, and this is traffic-related charges, for 2019. Now, compared to 2018 to 2019, I mean, we definitely have a problem with speeding in Norfolk County. There's 2,319 charges. Impaired driving, of course, we know has also increased. So we have a problem with speeding, we have a problem with impaired driving, and then I see distracted driving has also gone up to 38. So we've got three major problems in 2019. So the question to the chief, Mr. Chair, is do we have anything in place to combat this? Or are we going to increase enforcement on these issues? To the chief?
Speeding, seatbelt, impaired, and distracted driving are part of our corporate Big Four campaign that we focus on those. And we continually every day do enforcement on this through our focus patrols, through the speeding, through rides for impaireds, seatbelt campaigns, distracted driving. So it's an ongoing enforcement. And yes, charges are up, and that it varies from year to year. It really is on the motoring public of how they obey the law.
Part of the impetus and hopeful outcome in terms of reducing false alarm calls, reducing bylaw calls, and improving the service, move all of that capability and capacity to the front end, and again, get the strategic plan, the business plan in place, look for the tactical plan, the operational plan from the police service, and then certainly it came up in the discussions with council about speeding and distracted driving. So if we can put more of the time to that versus chasing ghosts and phantoms, false alarms, then we'll be better off. I do have to depart. I do bring your attention to page 24, 25, and 26, which Owen has provided, which is fundamentally the budget for the Police Services Board. And that's what we live within, and we look at which the annual conference and any other little seminars and zone meetings that take place. We factor those into that budget, but that's for your information only. And if you have any comments or questions, please give them to Owen, and I appreciate that. Question period.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Where do I get a copy of this draft strategic study?
It was attached to the minutes, or to the agenda?
It's in the agenda?
Yeah.
Okay, the way you were talking about it, I thought it was something separate that the media had asked for.
It should be in your agenda package, Marty, and if it's not, there you go. And I do caution you, it's a draft at this point. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other business for the board? Yes, sir.
Just one thing I want to mention really quick while you're here. September 29th, Tuesday, we are going to be holding the OACP and Zone 4 meeting. And I just wondered if the board had an appetite to discuss a possible venue for that meeting, and if the board was willing to put any funding towards that meeting.
Could I leave you to talk to Owen about that and get the details, and then he can send them forward to the board in terms of costs and commitments?
Well, that all depends on where we want to hold
Yeah.
it. And I'm not sure if the county has a suitable building or that we could hold it
I'm not
in.
sure we have suitable accommodation facility.
Well, there would be no accommodations required. It's just we need one large boardroom
Oh,
and
okay.
then two smaller breakout rooms.
Okay, can I leave you to work with
Sure.
Owen on that,
Okay,
please?
that's fine. I just
Yeah.
just wanted to mention that because
Thank you.
we got to work on that.
And I am going to depart. Is there any need for an in-camera closed session on operational issues?
We have nothing for an in-camera.
Board members? Okay, then we won't do the in-camera. Thank you very much. And I will ask, is there any other business from the board members? Seeing none, then I thank you very much, and we will adjourn the meeting at this time. Thank you.